Bonjour, Ellie. He has had a really good reception, actually, so far here in Paris. He was at the Arc de Triomphe yesterday for a ceremony which hasn't happened for 30 years in a state visit, an official welcome at the Arc de Triomphe. But it is very much the morning after the night before here in Paris. King Charles and Queen Camilla, guests of honour at a magnificent state banquet at the Palace of Versailles, hosted by the French President Emmanuel Macron last night in the Hall of Mirrors. There was some very, very high-profile guests, including Rolling Stones frontman Sir Mick Jagger and actor Hugh Grant. 160 guests in total. Who wants to know what was on the menu? Well, they had blue lobster, French chicken, and a 30-month Comté cheese, among some other delicacies as well. So they certainly weren't going hungry last night. Now, His Majesty delivered a speech at the state's banquet last night, all of which was in French. But just to translate parts of it, he said he was greatly moved by the tributes that Paris and France gave to his mother, the late Queen, because of course it was 1 year ago on Tuesday that Queen Elizabeth II had her state funeral, and he said he was profoundly moved by the gestures of France, including the flying of the Union flag above the Élysée Palace in Paris. He thought that was particularly poignant even. The King did concede, however, that France and British relationships has never quite been straightforward, but spoke of the really strengthening of ties between Britain and France, because that is the whole point of a state's visit, really. It's on advice of a Foreign Office as to why the King and the Queen decide to come on a state visit to France. And the Foreign Office spokesperson says it can really have a huge impact on a trading relationship. And in a post-Brexit world, perhaps the British government thought it was a good idea to send King Charles and Queen Camilla to France. Now, as for today, I'm stood outside a very noisy French Senate because of the street cleaners making it all nice for King Charles's arrival. But he'll become the first British monarch in history to address the senators from the Senate chamber. That's never ever been done before. The French Senate is the upper house of the French Parliament. Meanwhile, Mrs. Macron, Brigitte Macron, the President's wife, and the Queen Camilla, they are going to be launching a new Franco-British literary prize at the Bibliothèque Nationale de France. That's the National Library here in France. The Queen, of course, incredibly passionate about literacy and championing literacy, particularly in children and indeed in adults. She really finds that reading is important. And of course, as you mentioned, France is hosting the Rugby World Cup at the moment. So the King and Queen are expected to meet some sporting stars here in Paris a little bit later on today. And then tomorrow they will be travelling to Bordeaux for some military engagements. So a whole host of engagements rounding up the French-British relationship.
Oh, it's a packed schedule, isn't it? And you're doing very well there, Cameron. You're fighting with the rain and the street cleaners. You do a very good job.
Yeah, not
Thank
literally.
you so much.
Don't fight with
Don't
people
fight with
literally.
anyone.